Welcome to the CSI Global podcast series titled Structural Engineering Design Services for the World. Our first podcast is called Why Strong Structural Engineering Credentials Are Necessary for a Design and Detailing Services Company. I have the pleasure of having with me Jay Nayagam. Jay is a decorated structural engineer with 50 years of structural engineering experience, mainly in the United Kingdom. Some of the most iconic buildings that dot the London skyline have been designed by Jay. It's a real pleasure to have you on this podcast, Jay. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Vasant, for giving me this opportunity.
You're seen as a pioneer in the subcontracting of structural engineering, design and detailing services to other companies. You developed that industry almost from scratch in India several years ago. What got you started with that, and what do you think made you successful?
Firstly, I happened to be involved with a company that was beginning to carry out structural engineering software, and in my own experience between 1980 and 1994, I was able to split aspects of structural engineering that require real engineering experience and those that don't, and therefore it was very clear to me that what is required was a proper software that could be handed over to carry out those that are mundane. And this software evolved itself from 1987 onwards to something reasonable to hand over to another company, or form another company in the countries where labor is cheap. And this happened to be the period in 1994 when UK had undergone a great recession, and the UK was looking to reduce their costs. This really was the point at which I was able to approach my bosses, the partners or directors in the company, and suggested that I would like to try developing a detailing sector in India. This was given to me in 1984 by Freshman Consulting Engineers. Their senior partner was Indian who lived in Bombay, and it became very attractive for him. So I knew the software. I was able to buy the software at reasonable price, and I took that to India and trained about 100 staff initially in 1994. As it was not a subcontract, it was a subsidiary of the company I worked for.
Sure.
That meant that they were gaining a lot of benefit from doing this work. And I was also able to bring staff from that particular office, bring them to London, train them in design of engineering design to the British standards, and send them back. So this was the starting point for me.
That's great. So I'd like to change directions a little bit, Jay, and focus on your accomplishments as a structural engineer over the years. Like I said in my introduction, many of the iconic projects that dot the London skyline, you had an involvement in. If you were to pick one or two of those projects that you would like to highlight, which ones would they be, Jay?
Having gained the initial experience from small companies, I moved to a larger company which was responsible for perhaps the tallest buildings in London at that period. which was the natural tower and the center point, and which gave me an insight to how to build tall buildings. And I had a what can I say? It was red meat for me. It was an opportunity that I didn't want to miss. And the two partners who were greatly they were happy for me to get deeply involved with these projects. And I could not. Every project I've been involved in has had some challenges. The one project which I would say is the Paddington Water Basin, which was derelict after the First to Second World War, and this had to be refurbished. And this gave the greatest opportunity for me to see how one can do this. It was the water was filthy, dirty, and full of rubbish, and I had to clear it up and I successfully managed this. It was iconic because it came up in all the UK newspapers.
Mhm.
A direct pond-like feature was converted to a lake of some description, and a number of buildings were built around it to make it a attractive site in London. Of course, it also became such a valuable site for residential buildings to be developed around this. And I was involved in majority about 8 or 9 of these buildings. From not only doing conceptual design, I carried out detailed design in these buildings, and that was a joy for me, and it will always be in my memory.
Great. So now you're venturing out to the North American market, Jay, and you've reached out to Emergent Gateway to help you with that. The question I have for you is, why do you think you can be successful in North America, and why Emergent Gateway?
Firstly, in 2004, we entered into the Gulf market, the Middle East, and that was the time the Middle East was developing rapidly with very tall buildings, with reclaimed sea, and these were all controlled by large companies in America. So everything in Middle East was done to American standards. Having established an Indian company to carry things out to British standard, it's no brainer to train them to carry out detailing to American standards. And therefore, our detailers and our engineers are quite conversant with the American code of practices. Once you want to go to the American market, sitting in India or in the UK, you're looking for a company which is established in America, which knows America very well. And I know Emerging Gateway, and I approached Emerging Gateway, and they were quite happy to get involved. And that's the fundamental reason why there's a link between us and Emerging Gateway. The press release confirms this.
Yeah. So to just wrap things up, for North America, you have determined that the key offerings are BIM services and rebar detailing services. What is the key differentiator that CSI Global provides, especially for these two services?
Structure on its own is not sufficient to make it usable. A structure needs its nerve center, and the nerve center has to incorporate lots of other engineering disciplines, which includes air conditioning, servicing, fire, and think of it, there are several aspects that need to come in to make a building usable and cost effective. And one software that helps to do this is building information modeler. It was to building in necessary train our staff in building information modeler and all other services requirements that connect into this particular modeling facility. So at the end of the day, the building information modeler is an interesting product. It incorporates structure, it incorporates architecture, it incorporates services, it incorporates all the drainage, incorporates all the fire requirements. In fact, it goes as far as providing information for facilities management. Normally, if the structure is 3D, building information can take it to 4D and 5D. And this is the most important thing. Therefore, we have gained experience up to carrying out BIM information modeler, taking it further up to the level of 4D. We haven't gone to do costings and things of that nature because that is entirely a different field. It takes us away from our knowledge and our background.
Sure. Yeah, and why CSI Global for building information modeling and for rebar detailing?
We have trained a number of staff who can do this. We have trained them in this particular area. Having seen the gap in the industry and shortage of staff in the West, we have made an extraordinary effort to train the staff and are therefore in a position to say that we are competent to handle this area of the works.
And would you say that your strong structural engineering credentials that permeates CSI Global is a key differentiator as well?
Yes, I would say that too.
Very good. Thank you, Jay. It was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for doing this podcast. And thank you to the audience for participating in this podcast. Stay tuned for the next podcast coming up. Thank you, Jay. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.